Hey, welcome to my fourth video on T12A GDH. This is T12, and this is my 8 ways to build a unique commander deck. So let's get into it. Before we start, I want to say that these are just my ways of building a deck. I'm not saying that this way is the way to build a deck. I know that's what's great about EDH. You can build decks how you want to build decks, and these are just, if you're kind of getting stale with the way you're building decks and you're kind of looking for something new, or maybe there's something on this video for you. So anyways, let's get into it. All right, number 1. So this one might be something that might be a little controversial, but I say don't fall in love with deck building templates. And that's what am I meaning by that is you see all these channels, Command Zone, all these other ones that the big ones have these templates. Say, hey, if you want to build an EDH deck, they're kind of guidelines. Make sure you have this many lands, this many ramp cards, this many draw, removal, board wipes, and then you could have a little bit of the meat of the deck in some other categories, some enablers and stuff like that. I see this kind of making your deck not as unique because everyone's going to be doing a small thing, but mostly everyone's going to be ramping and drawing, and that's what I've noticed most with doing this template. These templates is I see all the time in streams and stuff. Everyone's like ramp on turn 2, ramp on turn 3, doing some card draw, and it's like kind of all the same kind of gameplay experience. I mean, that's just my opinion, what I've seen. Like, I was watching a Command Zone game the other day, and seriously, like, player 1 on turn 2, Signet. Player 2, turn 2, Signet. Player 3, turn 2, Rampant Growth. Player 4, Rampant Growth, or just like another turn 2 ramp. And I was like, are you serious? Everyone's just ramping and everyone's just card drawing. And I think this can be a big thing to change in your guys' deck building experiences, because yeah, decks do need ramp, decks do need draw, and I'm going to tell you how I kind of do this differently. And I think ramp is, it's really good, obviously, but I am kind of going away from ramp, and I know that I can put in interesting cards and just make sure. I think the most important thing is you just hit your land drop every single turn, and you're doing stuff every turn. You have you kind of pay attention to your curve more. You don't really need to fill your deck with a bunch of ramp. That's just me, though. You can catch up with board wipes. You can catch up with just value. And I think a lot of people just fall into love with ramp and draw categories, and they kind of do too much of this, and they also miss out on removal and board wipes. But anyways, that is my number 1. Don't fall in love with deck building templates. All right, number 2, and this might be another controversial one. I'm going to say for my number 2, don't only build around your commander. I know a lot of channels say that building around your commander is kind of, it is the spirit of the format, but if you start just building around your commanders, most of the time your decks with your commander are going to be very much similar to the same commanders that other people are playing. So if you're playing a Turgid deck, your Turgid deck is going to be very similar to every other Turgid deck. It's going to be doing the same thing to make people sacrifice, to make people discard. Same thing with the Arcades. You're going to be building a Defender wall deck, and you're going to be drawing a bunch. And every single person that is making that deck, it's got to have the same walls and stuff as you. And same thing with Get Draw Monster. You're going to be dredging, you're going to be drawing a bunch of cards, you're going to be sacrificing all your land, drawing a bunch of cards, and you're going to be doing the same thing. And I find this out that like this happens a lot. It's fun to build around your commanders because you're going to have some powerful stuff, and it's going to be a good time. But what I like to do, and I don't know if this is a popular thing, but I like to find a concept first, or something to build around, and then I choose a commander to fit that theme or that concept that I want to build around. Kind of build more for the 99 instead of the commander. That might not be a popular thing, but that's something that I do, and I think my decks end up being kind of unique in a way because it's. And then also, with another thing I forgot to mention is, if you're building all around your commanders and they die, then your deck sometimes doesn't properly function. That's just not fun. So if you build around a concept, you don't really need your commander there to make your concept work. It's just a kind of a bonus, a little cherry on top. But anyway, so here's an example. If you watch my Tamir deck, I built around, this Flooded Shoreline, bounce 2 islands to my hand, return target creature to its owner's hand. So I built the whole entire deck around bouncing lands to my hand, kind of like a Moonfolk deck, but with no Moonfolks. And I just wanted to bounce lands, play lands, and then MDFCs I wanted to bounce those back to my hand, then play them from the graveyard, and I just built around bouncing lands back to my hand and then being able to play them again with extra land drops and stuff. And it was not a landfall deck really. It was just a lands deck, and I was making these ETBs, and it was just a concept. And I had Maelstrom Wanderer as my commander. I didn't care if I cast Maelstrom Wanderer ever. It was just more of a value play. Anyways, that made it an interesting kind of deck. Wasn't like my commander was super cool, but my deck was cool. And that's what I like. I like to have a cool deck and not just a cool commander that makes my deck cool. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's my number 2. Don't only build around your commander. All right, number 3, have multiple strategies in your deck. So I was listening to the Command Zone, and Josh was saying that once you start adding more strategies than the one strategy that go with your commander, it becomes kind of an unfocused deck, and it's kind of hard to juggle the multiple strategies. And I like to try to find as many strategies as possible and throw them into a deck that overlap super well. Because I think it's a fun challenge to do. And I think if you find that magic recipe of having 3-4 different strategies and actually get the overlap to work in unison like really well, then your deck becomes awesome, because you'll be one game you'll be doing something, and then the next game you'll be doing something else, and it becomes a really unique deck instead of just being really based around your commander and only doing what your commander does. So that's what I would do. So when I go and I build my deck, I try to find overlapping strategies, things that have really good synergies. So anyways, I made a Naya deck, and there's a deck tech on that. You should watch it. And that's why I made the deck text, so I can refer to them in the videos like this. But so I was making a Naya deck, and I wanted to kind of make it a Birthing Pod Naya toolbox deck. That was one strategy. And I was building a concept first, not the commander. I was just going to be, I want Naya, I want those colors, I want to build a toolbox deck. Here's Birthing Pod. As I was throwing creatures into the deck, I was realizing I was getting a lot of humans in the deck. So I said, hey, I got a lot of humans and a lot of non-humans. Why don't I throw Winota? And that's where my secret commander, Naya, the Legends of Winota, was born. I was like, okay, Winota. And then as I was looking at the creatures I kind of had in the deck already, I saw that there was Kiki Jiki, and I saw that there's a tap there and a tap ability there. And then I had a lot of Wood Elves and all the Farhaven Elves to kind of go with the Birthing Pod theme. So I decided, hey, why don't I just add a Wirewood Symbiote to untap my Kiki Jiki, and then I could also make a nice little engine bouncing elves to my hand. And then I was thinking, well, Yisan also goes really well with Wirewood Symbiote, and it's also human to hit with Winota. And then when I saw that, I was like, oh, I started getting a bunch of legendary creatures, and then I said, hey, why don't I just add a Captain Sisse? Captain Sisse can grab these 2 legendaries, and then I added a bunch of other legendaries, and I kind of built, and then Captain Sisse could also get Winota. And I ended up just getting a human strategy, untapped strategy, an elf strategy, and I even made room for an equipment strategy, and then the toolbox strategy, like recursive strategy, all these kind of interesting strategies. And I love to make my decks kind of like a spider web. They're all kind of connected together in some way, and it ended up being that way. And it's a really fun deck. Check out the deck tech if you haven't, and you can see what I'm talking about. But that's what I'm talking about. You guys want to try to find at least 2 to 3 strategies in a deck that kind of you didn't realize that they can be good strategies together, and to see if you can make them work together. But anyways, that is my third one. Have multiple strategies within your commander deck. All right, number 4. And before I get into that, I would like to say if you have made it this far, you're probably going to watch the whole video. And I just wanted to say, if you like what you're hearing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button or a like or comment. I'm not doing this as a YouTuber or anything like that. It's just kind of a hobby for me. I already got a job that I like, and just like making videos and stuff. But if I get some subscribers and some likes, maybe it'll kind of make me want to make videos more often. And I think this kind of channel is one that you want to subscribe to, because I'm not going to make a video every week or every day, or maybe, I think my last video was like 2-3 months ago. So if you like what I have to say, then I think this would be a good channel to subscribe to. Anyways, all right, number 4. Use Tutors Responsibly. And this kind of refers back to my last video was the great debate, tutors and commander. And I kind of came down to, I think the problem with tutors is how we're using them. I don't think we're using them responsibly. And what I'm talking about is, if you're tutoring for Kiki Jiki or Restoration Angel to combo, then then yeah, you won the game, and that's a way you can win in Commander. But I think it's combos and stuff are more for like modern and standard, legacy, pioneer, CEDH. So I think tutors get the bad rap because stuff like that happens. People tutor for their combos. Anyways, also sometimes a lot of channels are saying that tutors, they're saying that they want you to have win cons. They want you to end the game. And then people are tutoring for Crater Hoof, Behemoth, Expropriate, and doing all these giant win cons. I was a big Crater Hoof guy when I first started playing EDH. I killed a bunch of people. I've also been killed by Crater Hoof probably more than anything else in my career of playing EDH. So I've been on both ends of that, and it's just not a feel-good card for me, at least. And I have taken that out of my decks. But anyways, I refer to this as easy buttons, not saying it in a negative way. It is easier to win with something that's just like, boom, I win the game, and that is combos and win cons like this. But I like to make, if that's not super unique, because people are able to do that, in other decks. A lot of people have killed people. I think Crater Hoof probably has killed more Commander players in the history of any other card. And Expropriate has probably made the most salty people of all time. So, yes, a lot of people can play these cards. I don't think they're super unique cards. Anyways, I forgot to say this kind of logic in my last video about tutors, so I wanted to say it in this video, and this is something that can make your deck maybe a little more unique. And I think tutors help make room in your deck. And let me show you what I mean. So you have these categories. So here's a removal category. You got Rex Sage and Courser Grip. Yep, you want removal. So you got a couple of those. You want ramps. So Kodamas Reach, Wood Elves. Good. And then let's say you're an Abzan Aristocrats deck, and you have a Silpor Cutthroat and Blood Arts, because you want to have that deck, or have those cards, and you want redundancy. So you have two of each of these things, right? So let's say you add a tutor, because you're Abzan. Let's say you add a Recruit of the Guard. So there's your tutor. And now, as you can see, if I add this Recruit of the Guard, I actually do have now 3 copies of each of these cards, because the Recruiter can grab a Blood Artist, Wood Elves, or Rex Sage. But instead of just making it even more redundant, why don't I just trim these bottom 3? Now I still have kind of 2 Sages, 2 Wood Elves, and 2 Blood Artists. But now instead of 6 cards, I have now 4 cards. I just made 2 cards room in my deck, right? And I think this can help you make really interesting, cool decks, because that's one of my favorite things, is making cool little tutor packages with unique tutors like this. Or I've been doing Urza Saga, is one of the newer tutors that I really like. Urza Saga, you can make a cool little package of that. But anyways, now that I have 2 slots open, what could I add? I think one of the most underused thing in EDH that I see, at least in my play groups that I've seen, is people don't play enough Graveyard Hate. So now that you have some room, I'm to throw a Graveyard Hate in there. And it's also, I went from 0, let's say I had no Graveyard, now I have 2 Graveyard Hates, because I have Recruited the Guard to grab this Remorseful Cleric. And now I have 1 more slot. What if I just throw a fun card in there? Throw a Lurrus in there. I can then build around a Lurrus. So now my deck might be starting to become a little more unique, because I've had room. And now you can go through your deck and make some cuts, add a tutor that can act through 2 different categories and stuff like that to help kind of make that spider web, as I was saying. But anyways, that is my use tutors to make your deck, make more room in your deck. All right, number 5, use card advantage over card draw. When I say card draw, I'm talking about like Guardian Project, Rhystic Study, and Return of the Wild Speaker. There's a ton of cards out there that now people are just going crazy over that make you draw cards. And also some of the most popular commanders are Shulane and like Corvold, cards like this that just say draw a card when blank happens, whatever happens. And these are extremely powerful effects, because I said that like people love their card draw and they love their ramp. And I think, and I'm going to go over my next 2 spots, is kind of how you can use card advantage. It's kind of a more unique way to get card draw in your decks, but it's not real card draw. So there's a lot of people that is doing this, and I would kind of want to say that like this is somewhat similar as an easy button, because yeah, if you're going to draw the most cards at the table, most often you're going to win the game, unless you just didn't build your deck correctly, or you didn't find enough synergies in your deck. So if you're drawing like 30 cards, you're probably going to win the game, and that to me isn't like crazy unique. right? Because a lot of people are doing it. People love their card draw and their ramp. So anyways, but if you've seen my videos before, you're probably thinking like, hey, wait a second, there at T12, you run the Great Hinge in one of your decks. And yes, it is. And it's actually one of my least favorite cards in the deck because of that very reason. I don't have that much fun when I am just like burying people with card advantage or card draw. I think it's a very easy way to draw, but the main reason I put it in the deck is because I had one and it was foil and nice and pretty. I traded for one, and when it first came out, and then it goes with the legendary theme, and that's why it's in there, so I can tutor it up with some legendary tutors, like Captain Sisay in that Naiad deck. But that's probably one of the first cards on the chopping block, to be honest, because I'm kind of getting tired of it. It's not that fun when I win that way, to be honest. And that's my number 5, use card advantage over card draw. And number 6 and 7 will be kind of showing you ways, or my favorite ways, to have card advantage. All right, number 6, make engines. And this is an interesting way right here to make card advantage. Engines, if you don't know what I mean by that, it's combinations of cards that allow repeatable effects to gain card advantage. And sometimes it's not just a combination of cards. Sometimes there's like solo cards that kind of do engines on their own. Well, I mean, these all need like a little bit extra, but they're pretty much the engines by themselves. One of my first engines I made way back before I even played Commander, before I played anything competitive, this tabletop Magic, I found Eternal Witness, and this is where my Eternal Witness love began. I found that if you Eternal Witness and have Ghostly Flicker, you can flicker 2 things, with Eternal Witness being one of them, and then you get to flicker back. So now that's repeatable. It's kind of making your own Deadeye Navigator with this a little bit more expensive activation ability. But it was awesome. So that's where my love for making engines began. I think building engines are one of my strong suits in deck building. And this is where it kind of began with this Eternal Witness, Ghostly Flicker kind of synergies here. And I have included this in Commander decks too. But anyways, I like to make my engines that snowball. Instead of just having like an attrition, there you go, there's my engine. I got a bunch of other creatures and I stack them, that's my engine. I like to have stuff that you can keep on adding to the engine, and then it kind of snowballs out of control. So here's an example of one for my Naiad deck. So Wirewood Symbiote, I already kind of mentioned it, and I said that I can have elves. Wirewood Symbiote can return an elf to untap a creature, and now if I just had a Visionary or a Rex Sage, there you go, that's an engine. I can draw a card every turn, every one of my turns, and with the bouncing the Elvish Visionary. So that's a card draw kind of engine I've created, kind of unique. Or a Rex Sage, bounce a Rex Sage in my hand, blow up something. All right, so right there. But then I can just keep on adding to this engine, make it a more complex engine. That's where the Captain Sisay comes in. Now I'm actually untapping something, not just bouncing for value. I'm bouncing for value, but also untapping Sisay to get extra value. So now Sisay can be tutoring double as much because of the Wirewood Symbiote. And then the Sisay can then grab the Yisan that I already mentioned, maybe a Falden, and look at all 3 of these legendaries have untap abilities. And this is all in my Naiad deck. If you want to check out the deck tech, go ahead and do that. Anyways, and then like the Kiki can maybe even blow up more stuff because you're copying the Sage or whatever, or maybe the Felden can get something you're kind of going, you're snowballing out of control, and then you can then Sisay for maybe Aurelia, and this is my secret tech for Aurelia. When it attacks, untaps all my creatures. Now you get to untap all these tap of creatures again, and that just kind of goes crazy. And then eventually you're going to find a Seaborn Muse, and that untaps everything again, and that just makes your Yisan, Felden, and Kiki, Sisay just go bonkers. It's just a crazy snowball effect. So that's my kind of deck building. I like that it's like, sure, it can be just a couple little innocent pieces, but then it just turn after turn and turn, it kind of gets bigger and bigger, becomes a problem if you don't deal with the board. Here's my other deck. This is another deck tech I have, is my Tamir deck. I had the Flooded Shoreline, start bouncing islands. Some people, this is only played in 284 decks, and that's something that's not one of my top 8. It's like to make unique decks is to use cards that nobody uses, but check out the channel EDH Deck Building with the host is Demo, and he has a weekly video if he gets 10 cards that you should be playing in your decks that you aren't. So it's a bunch of unique cards. That's something that he does. So check out his channel. It's really cool. We got some really interesting cards on those lists that he does. But anyways, 248 284 decks are only flooded shoreline, and it is. So people are like, why would I bounce lands? It's not. I want a ramp, But if you kind of build around it now, because this is an engine, you bounce something every turn, but you're going to be needing to play those lands. So now I'm going to play a Zusa. Maybe now this becomes a little bit better. Also in this deck, I have a lot more besides just a Zusa that can make me play extra lands. So this does really well in the deck. And then once I add another piece to this deck, the engine's getting a little better. I have a Mystic Sanctuary. Now I can, if I have enough islands, I can start putting instant sorceries on top every single turn and be bouncing something. The Zusa makes it bouncing for free because I just play the 2 lands that I returned, so that's nice. And then let's say I started getting up my lands, we're up to 7, and they're all unique. Start making a zombie every time I do it. Now I'm making 3 zombies every turn because of Zusa. Kind of snowballing out of control. And then it doesn't say opponent's creature. So now if I have a Mystic Snake, now I can counter something every turn. That's crazy engine, right? And then the cherry on top, my favorite thing, maybe if I can start bouncing my Eternal Witness with the flooded shoreline, now I'm just getting crazy value. And this is a little bit more unique than just having something that's draw a million cards, right? Like this is a snowball engine, and it can become a little teeny engine. It's kind of cool. And then if people don't realize it, pretty soon you're going to be snowballing out of control if you kind of start building your decks like this. It's kind of fun. But yes, add engines to your deck. All right, number 7, use recursion. Now, I think this recursion is not, on all the templates I've seen, I don't see a recursion category usually. You don't need to be, like, I love Eternal Witness. Eternal Witness should go in every green deck just because I love it. It's my favorite card. I'm going to play it in every one. But you don't need to be playing like a Mirror deck or Muldrotha deck or just a graveyard-based deck to play Recursion. Every deck has a graveyard. Use it. Like, you can throw things like Eternal Witness in your green deck, even though you're not playing a graveyard-based deck. When you do this, you make it so, let's say you have like 7, or let's say you have like 5 board wipes. That might be high. You probably have like 3 board wipes, and then you use 1. Now you only have 2 left. But let's say you have like 3 recursion cards in your deck. Now you still have 5 outs to draw a board wipe because you have recursion in your deck too. I think it really helps the consistency of your deck, and it makes it more fun. Like just reusing stuff is really fun to me. And that's what I was saying. Like you already saw in the last slide, the engine, a recursion engine is something that you can do as well for card advantage. So anyways, every color has ways to recur, and it's not always just like green is definitely the best because you can get anything, but like Angel of Serenity, people might see that as a removal spell. When I read that, I see get 3 creatures from your graveyard back to your hand when this dies. Like my Angel of Serenity usually is targeting my stuff from my graveyard so I can get them back when it dies. And then Body Double, like a lot of people don't realize blue can copy, this is a good card in blue, unique one to copy creatures in graveyard. So I count that as recursion because now you're reusing your best creature or someone else's best creature because it goes to any graveyard. And then Scrap Save It. Like red has a bunch of artifact recursion and black has a lot of creature recursion. And the one-eyed, this guy here can get any black card, which is kind of unique in a black deck. But anyways, every deck has a graveyard, so use it. Make sure you can make this as much as you want in your decks. You can have little engines that recur, or you can just add a few extra recursion elements to it, just 1 or 2 cards like an Angel Serenity or something like that, or an Eternal Witness type effect. I think it would help your decks quite a bit and make it kind of fun. All right, number 8, the last one. And number 8, every card has a purpose. Now, what I'm trying to say is, when I get done with a deck, or as I'm building a deck, I look at every single card and ask, why is this in my deck? You guys might already kind of do this, but I think sometimes we look at the wrong purpose. Sometimes if we're looking at it and we say, it's to fill the template. Oh, it's in there because it's ramp. Oh, it's in there because it's card draw. Like, that's not always the most unique way of doing it. Or if you're seeing it because it's a good card, I think those 2 reasons are probably not enough to keep that card in your deck. When I look at cards, I'm trying to make sure they're either a standalone, but also they need to synergize with other cards in my deck. So not just only a standalone, because that's like the win cons, like Expropriate. I'm like, oh, I put that in there because it's a win con. Like that's a standalone. but they have to be a standalone, but also synergize with other cards. So like Captain Sisay is a standalone because it just gets cards, but also synergizes with the Wirewood Symbiote, so it can like untap and do extra things. It's also human with hit off with Noda, that kind of thing. And I every single card I can look through and say 2 or 3 reasons, 2 or 3 other cards that it synergizes with. And that's when you can do that with every single card in your deck. Then that means you've made a very well thought out, unique deck that very synergistic deck. And one card that I want to mention that I actually think I'm going to start taking out of my decks, and I have already 2 of them, and I'm taking out of my Naya deck, is, speaking of standalone, Sol Ring goes in every single deck. And this is something that the EDH deck building demo was saying that he's starting to take out Sol Ring. And I already started doing that, but then when I heard him say, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And it made me realize, like, I didn't mention Sol Ring at all in my Naya deck, but it's in there. When I made my deck tech, I mentioned like almost every other card except for Sol Ring, because like it's just kind of boring. It's like, yeah, it's good. And so just because it's good doesn't need to be in my deck. Like, so I took this out and I put in a human that taps for mana, like a Summerald Sage, I believe, and it's still ramp, but it hit it off of a Noda. I have like 40-something creatures, so tapping for 3 mana, that right there is like better than a Summerald Sage. I can tutor it up with a Recruit of the Guard, so now it has so much more synergy, and there's a reason, there's a purpose why it's in my deck, and instead of just being like, oh, it's a good card. So I think the more times you look at a card like, oh, it's just really good, take those out, and then that would probably right there, if you just do that, if you go through your decks and just take out all the cards that are like, oh, it's just a good card, and find something that actually synergizes with your deck, that will right there just make your deck so much more unique, because a lot of people right nowadays are just saying, put the best cards in every deck. And everyone's doing their ramp and card draw. And then they have maybe a little bit of synergy with their commander. And once you start maybe taking a few of these things off this list, I think you can make some pretty cool, unique decks. But yeah. And that's my number 8. Every card has a purpose. Make sure you... All right. And that was my 8 ways to build a unique commander deck. I hope you guys enjoyed those 8 ways. Leave a comment if you liked it. Leave a comment if you didn't like it. Let me know what you think. Also, I just wanted to say before I leave is something I've been saying a lot to people is that I kind of inspired me to make this video is I would always say, like, I think it's really easy. This is my quote of the day for you guys. I think it's easy to make a deck that can win, but it's actually very difficult to make a deck win in interesting ways. And I think that's the challenge here. If you can make a deck win in interesting ways, then you're going to have a unique deck. But anyways, have a good one and talk to you later. Bye.